Picture for a moment the inevitable march of time. We usually visualize aging as a slow, unstoppable deterioration. Tissues degrading, inflammation quietly spreading through the body, fatigue setting in, and a gradual fading of vitality. For centuries, we've accepted this as the standard contract of human biology. But what if we've been completely misunderstanding one of our own organs? What if you already possess a built-in systemic anti-aging mechanism and you just have to turn the key to activate it? Today, we are looking at skeletal muscle, not as a mechanical tool for lifting or moving, but as one of the most powerful longevity organs in the human body.
It truly is a massive paradigm shift in modern physiology. For the longest time, both in medicine and in popular culture, we viewed muscle almost exclusively through the lens of mechanics or aesthetics. We thought of it as a structural tissue designed for locomotion, physical performance, or just looking good in a mirror. But modern biology is uncovering a completely different reality. When you contract a muscle under strain, you are not just breaking down fibers to build them back bigger. You are actually triggering a massive biochemical release. You are instructing your body to heal itself.
And that instruction comes in the form of something called myokines, right? I find this concept incredibly fascinating because it completely shatters the idea that exercise is just about burning calories. It reframes movement as a form of molecular medicine.
Precisely. To understand myokines, you have to first accept that skeletal muscle is actually an endocrine organ. Just like your thyroid or your adrenal glands, your muscles secrete hormones and signaling molecules into your bloodstream. These molecules are the myokines. They are specific proteins and peptides that are released exclusively when muscle fibers contract. Once they enter the circulation, they travel to virtually every other system in the body. They communicate with the liver, the fat tissue, the cardiovascular system, the immune system, and even the brain.
So if I'm understanding this correctly, the exercising muscle is essentially acting as an internal biological pharmacy. You aren't just moving a weight from point A to point B, you are broadcasting a chemical signal to your entire body, telling your cells how to behave.
That is a beautiful way to put it. It is a full body signaling network. When you sit on the couch all day, that pharmacy is closed. The lights are off. But the moment you engage in resistance training, you throw the switch. The muscle starts pumping out these myokines, and they immediately get to work. Some of them regulate glucose metabolism, others stimulate fat oxidation, and many of them initiate profound tissue repair. We are increasingly seeing that these molecules are the missing link in healthy aging and chronic disease prevention.
Let's dive deeper into the aging aspect, specifically this concept of inflammaging. It's a term that's been gaining a lot of traction lately. This idea that biological aging is heavily driven by a low-grade, chronic systemic inflammation. It's like a fire that never quite burns down the house, but constantly scorches the walls. How exactly do myokines interact with this inflammatory burden?
That smoldering fire analogy is spot on. Chronic inflammation is essentially the root cause of almost every age-related decline we fear. Cardiovascular disease, neurodegeneration, metabolic dysfunction, you name it. As we get older, our immune system gets a bit sloppy, and this background noise of inflammation gets louder. Now, here is where myokines perform what I can only describe as biological magic. Certain myokines released during intense muscle contraction have potent anti-inflammatory properties. They circulate through the blood and actively suppress inflammatory signaling pathways. They act like a systemic fire extinguisher. So, resistance training isn't just building strength, it is actively cooling down the biological fires of aging.
That is profound. It implies that physical movement is quite literally anti-inflammatory signaling. But beyond just cooling the fire, muscle also seems to be the engine room for our metabolism. I've heard muscle described as a glucose sink. What happens to our metabolic resilience if we let that tissue waste away over time?
The consequences are severe. Skeletal muscle is one of the largest consumers of glucose in the human body. When you have healthy, active muscle tissue, it acts like a sponge, soaking up excess sugar from your bloodstream and improving your overall insulin sensitivity. This gives you metabolic flexibility. But as people age, if they aren't actively strength training, they experience sarcopenia, which is the age-related loss of muscle mass.
And I imagine losing that muscle means losing your metabolic buffer.
Exactly. If you lose the sponge, the water has nowhere to go. Without sufficient muscle mass, glucose regulation becomes erratic, mitochondrial function declines, and metabolic diseases take root. Muscle stabilizes the entire metabolic system. Preserving it isn't vanity, it is a biological necessity for survival.
It really makes you rethink the modern lifestyle. We have engineered a world of supreme comfort. We sit in ergonomic chairs, we have food delivered to our doors, we rarely have to lift anything heavier than a laptop. But listening to you, it sounds like this removal of physical struggle is actually a silent accelerator of cellular aging. We've removed the stress, but in doing so, we've removed the signal for regeneration.
That is the great paradox of modern human existence. Biologically, we evolved in an environment that demanded regular, intense physical challenge. Our DNA expects us to struggle. When you subject your body to the controlled physical stress of resistance training, you activate ancient evolutionary survival pathways. You trigger DNA repair, you stimulate mitochondrial biogenesis, which is the creation of new cellular power plants, and you induce autophagy, the process where cells clean out their own damaged components.
The body literally upgrades itself in response to being challenged.
Yes, but it only upgrades if it receives the signal that an upgrade is necessary for survival. Without physical strain, those protective systems go dormant. The nervous system, the metabolism, the immune system, they all slowly power down because they assume the environment is entirely safe and requires no resilience. Comfort, biologically speaking, is a signal to atrophy.
That is incredibly sobering. Comfort is a signal to atrophy. It makes me wonder about the mind too. We often separate the physical from the mental, clinging to this outdated stereotype that muscle and intellect are somehow inversely related. But if myokines travel everywhere, they must cross into the brain, right? What is the exercising muscle telling the brain?
Science has completely shattered that old stereotype. The communication between the muscular system and the brain is continuous and profound. When you train, specific myokines cross the blood-brain barrier and stimulate the production of something called brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF.
I've heard BDNF described as miracle grow for the brain.
That's a very accurate description. BDNF promotes neuroplasticity, which is the brain's ability to form new neural connections. It supports memory, improves focus, and is highly effective at stabilizing mood and increasing stress tolerance. So, when you are doing a heavy set of squats or deadlifts, you aren't just building the muscles in your legs. You are literally bathing your brain in a chemical cocktail that protects it against cognitive decline and emotional instability. Movement is neurological medicine.
So if we take all of this, the anti-inflammatory effects, the metabolic stabilization, the DNA repair, the brain benefits, where does this leave the future of medicine? It feels like we are on the cusp of a total revolution in how we view healthcare. Instead of waiting for the body to break down and then prescribing a synthetic drug, we should be prescribing strength.
That is exactly where the frontier of longevity science is heading. We are moving away from passive treatments and moving toward proactive, movement-based interventions. We are starting to treat skeletal muscle as the ultimate longevity organ, and technology is accelerating this. We now have wearables that don't just count steps, but continuously monitor heart rate variability, sleep architecture, and nervous system recovery.
But the data itself isn't enough, is it? You can have all the gadgets in the world, but if you don't translate that data into physical action, it's useless.
Exactly. Wearables don't improve health. Interpretation and action do. The future of preventative medicine will integrate AI-driven recovery tracking with personalized strength training protocols. We will use technology to map exactly how much physical stress your specific body needs on any given day to optimize myokine release and cellular repair. It's about precision activation of the body's built-in survival mechanisms.
It is a profound thought to end on. Every single time you push against resistance, every time your muscles contract under the weight of physical strain, you are not just exercising. You are sending a biochemical directive to your entire biological system. You are telling your cells to repair, to adapt, to strengthen, to survive.
The true purpose of movement was never just about how we look on the outside. It has always been about biological renewal on the inside. The human body was intricately designed to protect itself, but it demands physical challenge to unlock that protection. Strength truly is a longevity signal.
A powerful reminder that our bodies are waiting for the instruction to live fully, and that instruction is written in movement. Thank you for walking us through this incredible landscape of protective biology. It leaves us with a lot to think about the next time we consider skipping a workout. The choice is ours: comfort and decay, or challenge and renewal.